Airbnb is 100% officially dead. There is no question about that, right? And I agree with this 100% if you are doing average properties in average market. I'm going to uncover how you can actually be successful with this. But before I do that, I want to show you two of my friends, Ryan Pineda and Morby, and their discussion of what they had to say recently about Airbnb as well.
Everybody that tells you Airbnb is the way to go has been lying to you. I'm sorry. Unless they're focusing on like super properties, like a good friend of ours, good friend of mine, Bill Faith. Do you know Bill Faith?
He just joined M19.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he was texting me. He told me, he said, say hi.
Yeah.
Bill Faith teaches Airbnb the way Airbnb should be taught, which is stop going after regular houses, go after like exceptional properties that are harder to get into. You got to have a niche. I like that, and I think he's right.
So I appreciate their kind words about myself, but you know, I don't think that I do it overly differently than a lot of other people that do it successfully. But I did write the book called Super Properties, which you can see right here. And that's really what is thriving today. And there's some components that go into making sound investments. Look, I don't disagree with Pace and with Ryan. And it's funny because I knew Pace was going to Vegas to film on Ryan's podcast because I'm going to do that in a few weeks as well. And we're all friends. But the interesting thing is the comments that come in and the haters, you know, that come in and say, oh, you think Airbnb's dead and that's BS and you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you know, they're both pretty sound real estate investors, as I am as well. And I also do different things than just short-term rentals. I just hosted a free live masterclass with Kenny Bedwell, unlocking the stuff that these hotel coaches won't share with you. So there's a reason that Kenny and I have both diversified into boutique hotels. But there's also problems with that as well that we uncovered in about a 90-minute live training that we did, because most people aren't sharing the real stuff. They gatekeep it, right? And that's one of the things I love about Pace. Pace doesn't gatekeep anything. He gives it all away. I give almost everything away. I keep a couple of things, you know, gatekeeped, but here's the deal. If you're going to be average, if you're even going to be in the 75th percentile, which is above average, you're probably not going to make very much money investing into short-term rentals. And that's why you need to follow the way that I invest. And I'm not saying that you have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. I'm not going to be the guy, I promise you, ever to get caught holding the bag. At some point, this real estate market is going to flip. The appreciation that we've seen since COVID 2020 is uncharted territory. And when that happens in the stock market, when that happens in our economy, when that happens in the real estate space, at some point, there's a bubble that bursts. And none of us know exactly when that's going to happen. I don't see that happening in the next 3 to 5 years. You notice that last minute or two of conversation is about appreciation. I've said nothing about Airbnb rents. I've said nothing about cash flow. Because when I make an investment, I am looking at multiple exits. And I'm looking, number one, and this all ties into the market, the property selection, and how Bria and I are going to update the property, because we basically burr everything. So my first mentality, before I even look at owning the property long-term, is a flipper mentality. That's what Ryan Pineda has done forever, right? That's why I like Ryan and I like Pace and I like what they do. And we all need to have a mixture of knowledge and experience as we're doing any segment of real estate. There's a component of short-term rentals in sub 2. There's a component of flipping and wholesaling and in short-term rentals and what I do. So I'm literally underwriting to flip a property first. That doesn't mean I'm intentionally going in to flip it, but I want to know that I can have an exit, which ties into my design style. Because the biggest mistake that I see a lot of you making right now, you might have great cash flowing assets as a short-term rental, but you're in markets that appreciate very slowly and you are building to STR. You're rehabbing to STR. You're designing to STR. So just going to slow down and take a second, and I want to walk you through something, because I make all of my stuff very public, right? In real time as I'm going through these things. And if you remember where I hosted B&B camp in Whitefish, Montana last year, place was called Whitefish Retreat. Had the main house, the guest house, 5.5 acres, had the pond, the trout stock fishing pond, had the man-made creek coming down into it. It was beautiful. Cost me $2.8 million to purchase. 6 months in, realize, based on the neighbor pushback that caused everything to go from a county issue to a state issue that I was unaware of after hiring the best environmental consultant, Jerry Johnson, to work with me, that it was going to be a long and expensive path to get that to be able to get permitted for short-term rentals. And I couldn't even continue to host my events because of the septic issue of both dwellings being on one septic. That seems like an easy fix. Just separate it at a separate septic. It's not. Because of the bodies of water that I had on that property, I was going to have to custom design a septic for the guest house, push it all the way up to the back of the property. If you attend a B&B camp where we had dinner under the tent, right? And that's going up 15 feet of grade. And it was going to be like a $70,000, $80,000 project. It was going to be 10 or 15 grand for Jerry. And it was going to take me over a year because of the water mitigation studies that I had to do, all that type of stuff, right? So at $20,000 a month holding cost, we're talking $250,000 easy. So I elected to sell that property after owning it for 6 months. Went under contract in probably 5 to 6 hours, maybe a day, let's say, after we listed it for $3.4 million to a family from Alaska that bought it for a second home, not a short-term rental. So if I would have taken where we had that tent for that B&B camp dinner and put in a pickleball court and put in a life-size outdoor chess game and, you know, a swing set or whatever the stuff is that we're doing, a putting green, that type of stuff. Now that is basically boxing me into short-term rental only on the exit. I didn't do that. I put a game room in one of the garages. I did some expansions. I modernized the property. I added a second hot tub. I added a second fire pit. I did things that would make it attractive from a short-term rental standpoint, but I kept myself out of the STR exit box, and I was able to exit at $600,000 more than what I paid for it 7 months later is when we closed. It takes a couple of things to be able to do that. One, if you look at mine and Bria's portfolio, every single property that we own is elevated for Wealthy Wendy. Wealthy Wendy's our buyer persona that we're trying to attract as our ideal guest, but it's also who we want to sell to. We're not looking to sell. I just sold a lake house. I did not sell it as an STR. It was sold to the baseball coach at Mississippi State University. And I doubled my value in that property in 3 years because I'm picking locations that appreciate well. It's one of the reasons I'm investing heavily into Whitefish, Montana. If you follow me, you know I'm under renovation on a $2.75 million property that we're putting about $600 cash into with a wedding venue that will also double as a private pickleball club during the winter. Are you ready to run your STR business like a real business? Baselane gives you everything you need in one place. Saves you hours every single month on your banking side and reconciling all the stuff that we all hate doing as STR owners in the back end in bookkeeping. Look, protect your money. You don't want to be mixing personal funds and property funds. That's a total rookie mistake. Baselane keeps you organized and your funds separate. It is the easy button if you're using Stessa or QuickBooks or any other component, and especially if you're a co-host or have multiple properties like me, because it quickly you can go in and you can add property after property after property and set everything up individually. Even when you go to Costco and you buy $300 worth of toilet paper for 3 properties at one time, one click, split, 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 boom, it all gets assigned to the correct property. I've got a special deal for you from Baselane. All you have to do is start today and get a free $100 when you sign up for Baselane and fund your account, and they'll drop it right into your account when you get started. 3 prongs of revenue. I'm buying a parking lot adjacent to it, and I'm doing that outside of the property ownership in a different entity, so that way I can segment that, because I may not use that as a parking lot. I may decide to turn that into a small village of tiny homes. So I don't want that rolled into the property. When you have built businesses like I have, then you understand that you have to have your exit strategy in mind and multiple exit scenarios before you launch the business. And if you don't, you can get stuck. And I don't want you guys to get stuck. So I really need you to change your mentality when you're going into these properties and make sure that you have multiple scenarios to exit on the front end. Make sure that you're burring and building and designing and equipping with amenities for those multiple exits. Don't box yourself in, because that's what's happened to those of you that have invested into Atlanta and Blue Ridge, and you have that standard 3-2. That's the stuff that Ryan and Pace are talking about, that you furnished from IKEA or Amazon, and you haven't elevated after a specific buyer persona, and you haven't elevated to be able to attract through your marketing. That's the mentality of, how am I going to market this property after I purchase it? What am I putting into this to make it more marketable? That's why I use my super grader. Go down to the comments down below on YouTube or on Instagram, click here or comment super grader so you can get my super grader. That's a comparison systematically of all of my competition, and that allows me to see what components are missing that I can go and add in. It allows me to give the property I'm looking to purchase or I'm under renovation on an actual score and show the score against my competition. Airbnbs work, but they're dead with the old mentality. You can have a mindset shift and really focus in on your buyer persona. Understand your buy box before you go into a market, and do the research and make sure that your buy box actually fits in that market. Like Gatlinburg, Smokies right now, in my opinion, 4 to 7 bedrooms is the worst place you can invest. But you see me and you say, oh, Bill, you're investing into those bigger properties. I can do that in the Smokies. 1 bedroom condo with a pool is the #1 returning asset in the Smoky Mountains right now, not your bigger super properties. So your buy box has to fit inside the market, then find the submarket that works. I can't tell you, there's a huge difference between Fort Morgan, Alabama and West Beach. There's a huge difference between Seaside and PCB, or Laguna Beach and the east side of PCB. There's a big difference in Whitefish, Montana and Kalispell, Montana. There's a big difference in investing into a downtown vibrant area in a ski community like Park City, Utah, that has the Olympics coming up in 6 years, and investing on the mountain in the village that's only going to be a true 100-day to 130-day market. You've got to unlock that knowledge, and most importantly, you need to practice every single day. So when you're ready to pull the trigger, you have the confidence and the experience to find your next super property. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Bill Faith Unfiltered. Make sure you smash that follow button so you can subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode.